Brothers and sisters in the Dharma, may you all be well, happy, and peaceful. Now we are going to have a presentation and Dharma discussion on a very important matter pertaining to religious practices or spiritual practices. Now, I've titled this presentation, Investigating Matters Wisely. Now, that is very, very important, isn't it? To investigate a teaching, an issue, a presentation or some advice. We have to check it out. We have to find out. Now, the texts are in English and also Chinese. The Chinese translation was done using Google Translate. So it might not be 100% accurate. So for that, my apologies. But anyway, it will give some understanding of the contents of the presentation. Now we'll go over this presentation and I will explain as we go along, right? So now before we launch the PowerPoint, let me check the setup first. It should be okay. So now we have to launch the PowerPoint. View show. You can see the cover slide. And the cover slide has certain things for us to think about also. Now you can see this image showing the thinking process, the reflection, the thinking that must go on in our mind when we are presented with certain teachings, particularly in religions and spirituality, and also to ponder, to find out, to investigate. These are the two cartoon images of suggesting investigation. Now let us go on to the second slide. This is also a cover slide. And as you can see, the title is Investigating Matters Wisely. Now, I think most people know what is meant by this topic, isn't it? Wisely, to do the right thing so that you will not, face with negative happenings, and then you face with problems, dukkha, suffering, pain, and so on. To be able to know what is right and what is wrong. So wisdom is a very important thing. But you can see today, we have so many teachings in all religions. And also within Buddhism itself, you have so many sorts of teachings. You have different speakers, whether monks or lay people or nuns. They come with their views. Sometimes you find some of them belong to cult groups, and teach very, very wrongful things, which are not in line with what the Buddha taught. So now the question is, what should we do? Which is correct? Which is the one that we have to follow in our quest for reaching the goal of stopping suffering? Now, this is a very important thing, isn't it? In fact, many friends have told me, they say, brother, the more we read, the more we listen, sometimes the more confused we become. This speaker says this, another speaker says that. This book says this thing, another book presents a different view. Now, what should we do? Which is the correct one? So we are going to address this question, this very important issue, so that we will know, we will not go off track. We will not follow the wrong way that eventually will harm our mind and lead us astray. So that is why I did this presentation to help people know or decide what sort of teachings they should follow and what is regarded as the correct and proper way. So this is the gist of the topic to investigate. Now, let us go on to the actual contents. Now, you see, the issue is this. When one receives some, let us put it as so-called spiritual teachings, or even so-called religious teachings, or advice even, how would we know the spiritual matters and advice are wise to follow in living one's life? Everybody wants to be more peaceful and happy in the mind. And most people, follow certain religions or spiritual teachings or spiritual teachers. And they differ in their doctrines, in their presentations. So, but we want to improve in our mind to be more happy, peaceful, isn't it? So now, which is the one that we have to follow? This is the issue. Many of them claim, isn't it? They claim that they represent the truth. They are the true teachers. They are the true spiritual masters, So this happens all over, And it happens in all religions. But we are going to focus on Buddhism. Within Buddhism itself, you have this problem also. And you can see the animated images, people, will distribute pamphlets to say, come and listen to this true spiritual teaching that will help you to be prosperous, to be happy, and so on. And then, some people will run to certain temples or certain centers, and you have certain cult leaders, they might even go into trances. They will try to advise you because you have problems, and then you run, or people recommend you to go to this place, and they prescribe very, very funny things, you see. Some people go to fortune tellers, or, people who are able to read your minds, using a crystal ball, using birds, using cards, look at your hands, and tell you certain things and advise you on certain things. So now the question is, are they giving the wise advice, giving the wise info? That is the issue now. So let us go to the following slides. Now we are going to bear in mind this particular teaching of the Buddha. It's called the Charter of Free Inquiry, or the actual sutta is Kalama Sutta. And this Kalama Sutta is found in the Buddhist scriptural books. The authentic, the good scriptural books have this sutta, one of the suttas. Actually, this problem is not a new problem or not a new issue. It happened long time ago already in a town called Kesaputta in India. So in India that time, there were so-called spiritual masters, and they had also religion like Brahminism, which you can say are related to earlier form of the Hinduism. Hinduism are older than Buddhism even. And probably there were other spiritual groups. Jainism, I think, also very, very old religion. So many different spiritual masters and teachers teaching these people, saying that theirs is the way to truth, theirs is the way to heaven, theirs is the way to salvation, right? So these people from this town, Kesaputta, of course they get confused, just as now also we have people get confused. Who is speaking the truth? Which should we follow, the wise way? And that was the occasion when the Buddha gave this fantastic teaching. This fantastic teaching, the Kalama Sutta. Now the sutta is quite long, but I have summarized it on the main points that we should note, we should consider before accepting something blindly, hook, line, and sinker. And this is what we're going to focus on. And then after that, we'll move on to other things we have to consider in deciding whether that thing is wise to follow or not. There are many points for us to consider before we make a decision, so that we will be doing the correct and wise way. Right? Now, so of course, I like this particular Buddha animated image. It's probably very serene, and this of course shows the Buddha talking to. Actually, he would preach to the monks as well as all lay people and even the gods from the heavens. Now let us go on to slide number 5. Now slide number 5. This is the thing in the Kalama Sutta, which can be considered as the charter of free inquiry. We have free investigation. We just don't accept things. We must inquire like a scientist to find out, check it out. This is what the Buddha advised. The Buddha did not ask you to just believe a particular holy book. As you can see all the points here. First, they do not go upon what has been acquired by repeated hearing, nor upon tradition, nor upon rumor. Look at these 3 points. He said, just do not accept, just do not believe, just because you have heard this so-called teaching or this information or this advice so many times already, including people who claim to be very smart or very wise. So just because it has been going on for a long time and repeated, or tradition, you look at your own culture, your family background, you find that down the line, since our great-grandmother or great-grandfather or grandmother's time and so on, things have gone down. They say, oh, you must not do this thing, you must not sweep the floor during Chinese New Year Day because it will bring you bad luck, right? And also you are born in this year of the rat, so this particular year you have to be very careful. When maybe you have a wedding, you must not attend, lots of all these things that you hear based on so-called tradition, so-called cultural beliefs, and also have been repeated so many times. And they go into your subconscious minds already. And you believe those things. And they get stuck. You are what we call conditioned already. You have been led to believe these things, and then you have sort of been brainwashed already, right? Repeated things sent into your subconscious mind. So that's very good point, isn't it? And do not just believe just on the surface like that, just like that. You hear kabar angin, but you maybe don't think that it is a rumor. You don't check it out. Or say, there's this thing saying that in 2 weeks' time, there's going to be a natural catastrophe. There'll be terrible thunderstorm, and some religions even would say that the world is going to end, So this becomes very strong sort of a rumor, information and news spreading, and people get panicked. They get frightened. So of course this is not good for the mind, isn't it? The mind is being disturbed, and you, just because you hear it from many sources all over and you believe it, even though it's just a false information or worse still, a rumor. And you find today also with the WhatsApp and so on, so many things which are not true are being spread. Rumors are being spread, and then the mind gets worried, upset, and you waste so much time, So this is a very important teaching in the Kalama Sutta. Do not just because of these things accept or believe straight away. Now let us go on to the other points. Slide number 6. Now this slide number 6, he said, do not believe just because it's in a scripture. Different religions, of course, may claim that their teachings are correct because they have their holy books. And the holy books are very, very special. They are not written by ordinary people. And some would say, these books are inspired by a supreme being or creator or God from heaven. No. So this religion says this, their book is the holy book. Another religion says theirs, and they don't agree actually. Many points of differences. So this happens even in Buddhist scriptures. And you see that in Buddhist tradition, you have 3 groups, right? The Theravada, Mahayana, and the Vajrayana. And they have scriptures also on these 3 traditions. So, and there are differences. Of course, there are common things also. But the differences, can be very confusing and misleading. So people get confused. One scriptural book or one tradition says, to be a Buddhist, you must be a vegetarian. Or to be a Buddhist, you must follow this is in the teaching, the holy book, saying that when the person passes away, you must not touch for 7, 8, or 9 or 10 hours. Or in order to be free from your bad karma and so on, you must not, you must do this, you must function, you must release, go and buy fish and birds, lots of all those things. So the Buddha said, do not just believe just because it's in the holy book. Wow, imagine that. And that includes Buddhism and all other religions. And do not just believe because it is a surmise. A surmise. Now, what is actually a surmise? A surmise is something you assume, you're supposed to be true, but there is no concrete evidence. It's not backed up by modern findings in science, psychology, and other fields of knowledge where you have the top scientists investigating. So they are not backed up by this, and you just hear a grandmother's story or rumor and so on. So you make that assumption or supposition, this is true. No, wow, so many people have said it. And then also do not believe just because it's an axiom. An axiom means something that is regarded for a long time as the truth already. Some axioms are very good. Like for example, you have an axiom and say that everybody must die. We know we can investigate that is a good axiom. But some are not really acceptable, right? So we also have to examine. There might be some axioms that are wise when we check, but not all. Just as Proverbs. Proverbs also have wisdom, but some also are not acceptable, isn't it? So we have to really investigate and use our good thinking, our wisdom, our contemplative mind to find out. And also do not just believe based on some very, very misleading reasoning, People do not know what is logical reasoning in philosophy. They have not studied this. So they are just misled because the mind does not think enough. I remember in one occasion, Sungai Sumun, that I was teaching. So I gave this type of very, very wrong reasoning to the Form 5 students, And they imagine, can believe and accept it. And they give the answer that is wrong. I said that. I said, I can speak in, actually I spoke in Bahasa Malaysia at that time, but now I can say it in English. I say that all men must die. So I'm giving something like an axiom, right? So of course this one, we know from human experience is true. So everybody accept, right? I say all men must die. Ali is a man. Therefore, Ali must die. I say, betul atau tidak? Betul-betul cikgu, betul-betul. Correct lah, logical. Then I say, semua burung bertelur. A bird lays eggs. And they say, betul-betul, okay. Right? Ular juga bertelur. Jadi ular adalah burung. I say a bird lays eggs, a snake also lays eggs. Therefore, a snake is a bird, a type of bird. And they say true, true, true. You see, that's how very, very illogical, specious reasoning. This is an example. So now let us go on to number 7 now. Slide number 7. Do not believe just because you are biased towards a particular view, a particular opinion, a particular concept. You are prejudiced. You lean towards that because maybe that person very, very rich, right, has helped you before. Oh, he has titles, So what he says, oh, you are biased, no. You say, oh, this fellow is saying something that is true, no. Why? Because there is a reason behind that he has got a hold on your mind already. Or you wrongly respect certain types of people just on the surface. You think, oh, the fellow is so highly respected and so on, So what he says, you are inclined to believe. So do not be biased towards anything, a notion of anybody lah. Of you don't bother whether it's this religion, that religion, this race, or this gender, and so on. So do not believe towards a notion that has been pondered over. You have actually to ponder over, but some they can't ponder and contemplate over because they have been sort of brainwashed in a way or biased already lah. And then don't just believe and accept just because you think, wow, that person is very capable, especially you come across cult leaders wow, that show you some so-called magical powers, At one stage, there was this so-called spiritual leader from India. Wow, so many followers, they believe what he taught because they say that he could, show miracles. He could just change a stone into a golden ring, And then he could read your mind, All sorts of things as a seeming ability, But of course, there are people with psychic powers. But that doesn't mean the person is teaching the right thing. The person has wisdom because crooks also can develop these psychic powers. Devadatta, earlier also he had psychic powers, but you see, he gave the wrong teachings. And then also the Buddha made this fantastic statement, do not believe just because you say this monk is our teacher. Today, that's what we see. The Buddha said, do not believe just because you consider that, this monk is our teacher. So all that he says, I must follow. I must follow the advice. The Buddha said that we have to investigate. I remember at one stage, long time ago, there was this very charismatic Thai monk, very good looking. I had been to his talks also, right? Translated into English, I think. Yeah. He was speaking in Thai. Very good looking, very charismatic, and on the surface, wow, full of metta, loving kindness. Wow, he got so many followers, all over the world, including America and other countries. And he came to Ipoh also. But then later on, what happened? Some years later on, certain people complained already, people could think, and they found this was not the proper monk, that he had been, doing sexual misconduct with some women and so on. So he was forced by the Buddhist authority group in Thailand to disrobe. That is not the true monk. So you see, this is a very classic example. And there were many other cases. I wouldn't have time to. Right? So Buddha said, even monks, don't just regard this our teacher, but follow up, hook, line, and sinker, everything that he says, So that is fantastic, isn't it? So that is a very important thing. And this happens all religions. That's why you see religions have so many groups also. And they don't teach all the same thing. Some things common, of course, and some are completely opposite, contradict. So we have to think and investigate and ponder. So this happens all religions, including Buddhism. So then the Buddha gave These criteria, how do we decide, right? How do we decide whether that thing is true or not? Kalamas. Now, these kalamas refer to the group of people in that Kesaputa. There are different, the caste, right, or different group of people. So these were the kalamas, just as now we have, maybe Hokkien, Cantonese, Chinese, Indian, Malay, or something like that lah. It's a kalamas. When you yourselves know these things are good, these things are not blamable, these things are praised by the wise, undertaken and observed. These things lead to benefit and happiness. Then enter on and abide in them. Now, those are fantastic words that tell us how we should investigate and find out for ourselves. You see, you have to ponder, check it out, investigate. These things are good. Now, what do you mean by good? Now, good things will help other people to be more happy, peaceful, will help your mind to be more peaceful and happy, isn't it? And these things that you do will not be blamed by others later on. If you do bad things, you might think you can escape. But the time will come, then what happens? The law might catch up on you. And people will blame you already because they have followed the things and found that they are not helpful. They are not helpful. They make their lives more miserable, more dukkha. Then you find these are the things blamable. So you have to decide is good or not good. The good criterion is, later on you will see the criteria lah. In more detail I will explain. Those things that will not bring you the peace, happiness, and wisdom in the mind to know what to do, how to be morally good. These are the things which will not be blamed by the law or other people. And then the wise people. The wise people, you have holy ones, isn't it? Noble ones. And how do you know they are wise? You can see their conduct. You can see their character. So much of metta and so on. And that also we will explain later on. So, as the Buddha emphasized, that if you follow these things, you undertake those teachings or follow the advice and observe carefully on the rulings that are being taught, then they will lead you to benefit of happiness, peace, freedom of the mind, less dukkha already. Then you should enter into this sort of teaching. You should accept or you should act. Abide means that you act in accordance with what is being taught. Then only you accept. Wow, fantastic way, isn't it? To check it out. This is another beautiful picture to show the teaching. Now let us go on to number 9. One should think and reflect carefully. The one I have already summarized the Kalama Sutra. So now we are going to expand into the other areas which actually have a bearing with what the Buddha said and taught in the Kalama Sutta. So what should one do? So one should think and reflect carefully. We have a human mind to think, isn't it? Animals cannot lah. They go mostly by instinct. But human mind is fantastic. We can think and reflect carefully whether that person giving the spiritual teachings or the information or the advice when you seek their help because you have problems, all right, you want to get religious counseling or spiritual counseling, you go to temples, you go to this group, this Dharma center, and so on. You want to get the advice from either the monks or the lay people who are so-called teaching the Dharma, right? Then you have to check out. How do you check out? You have to go by this. Whether the teaching or advice, you have various things. You have to check out the teaching that person is giving or that group is giving, or the advice or the information that group is giving. Do they follow these things? So let us look and see what the things are. Now, 1, the teachings or what they give should not go against the findings of science, medicine, psychology, and other proven areas of human knowledge. Now we know that there has been fantastic findings in these fields. Not just by one person, of course, maybe you have one original one person like Albert Einstein. Then now people already have done more research on it and shown that actually it was true. So we have to check that teaching is not against the modern scientific findings acknowledged by the scientists or the medical experts and so on. Now you can just think and see, long time ago, right? Like in Christianity, I have a very strong background in Christianity. The church taught some of the things which today we will consider as not correct. For example, the earth is flat, right? And then also that the sun will go around the planet. Now we know that the sun is the center of the solar system, and the earth and the other planets go around the sun, isn't it? And many other things. And if you don't believe all those things, you are considered heretics and you can be punished, and some will be sentenced to death also. There were famous scientists that were made victims because they found by science that it's not true, like Galileo, Copernicus. And the same thing happens in other findings also. Like when Isaac Newton, one of the great scientists, established his laws, very good, very practical, but they were not really 100% accurate. And it was Einstein that came and gave another set. So we have to make sure we do not accept the things that completely langa the science. Until today, you have people maybe brainwashed already, still believing that the earth is flat. We know so much evidence. You have spacecraft seeing from outer space. The earth is a sphere, isn't it? Like a bola, that sort of thing, And also, like some of them, they just follow. They are sick. They don't go and see the proper doctors and so on. They'll go and consult, so-called spiritual masters. Oh, this is due to your bad karma lah. So now I give you some fish paper lah, holy paper angkong hua. Then you burn all those things and you drink all things, you'll be okay. But the serious illness is spreading in your body already, isn't it? So now you are believing the spiritual teachings. Many examples, I have no time to give you. People go and consult feng shui master go and look at the palms, palmistry and that is so-called spiritual teachers or maybe certain cult leaders tell you this, tell you that. Even one of my relatives went to consult a so-called expert fortune teller in I don't know whether temple or what. Say that, she was 60 something, maybe 67. Say, another 2 years, wow, your fate will be like this, you will be having very serious cardiac problems, you might die also. Of course, my auntie got very panicked, the mind is disturbed. That is just believing and following something that has no basis, scientific basis. Then say, what to do? Oh, no problem. I will give you something, right? But of course, there's ampao lah. You have to give one, So my auntie did that lah. But the thing has already gone into the mind, the subconscious, so very worried lah. So for 2 years, the sleep also sometimes would dream about what would happen. The mind will think about that. So it's terrible, isn't it? This is not actual spiritual teaching. It's not the truth. Then when she came to that particular age mentioned, she said, I think my heart is not functioning well. So when to check with the specialist, oh yeah, got irregular breathing and so on. So now the interesting point is, right, was the so-called spiritual master really true to predict it, or it would be a case of mind? Because psychology has shown it also, that your mind can influence your body. Psychosomatic. You have heard of things like placebo effect. So be careful. This is a very good criterion you have to use. Now let us go on to the next point. Now, that thing, right, that the Buddha taught, that the teaching or the advice also should be logical and reasonable. But you have to be careful also. Certain thing appears logical and reasonable, but they are not. You have to be very careful and investigate. So they should be logical and reasonable and not cause you some problems, some wrong beliefs, some fear and worry, bringing negative consequences to your mind and your life. Now, just give you one example. Here you can see a crystal ball reader. Supposed to be a spiritual master, can predict certain things and advise you what you should do with your life and all those mumbo jumbo. Nobody knows what the future is going to turn out to be, isn't it? You do the proper thing, that is the important thing. Not to consult this or that. This one you have another, Chinese you have the Qitong, the mediums. In the Western civilization, so you have people who claim, they know certain things, so they can advise you on this and that, this and that. So instead of seeking the proper ways, straight away they run to this. I'm not disputing that there might be some cases where the mediums, they able to contact spirits and so on, but those are very rare. You have to be careful, a lot of con people around. So like this case, for example, it's just a joke, but it's very interesting that you have to be very careful. So this particular young lady went to consult maybe a medium medium like in the trance, whether it's Chinese or Western is not important, right? So then she said, your grandmother who passed away already, right? Now it's entering me already. Then after that, she changed her character and then started to speak, right? And then say certain things. You see, then the medium started speaking as if the fellow were the grandmother of this young lady, right? And then later on, right, when the medium got out of the trance, he said, just now, the grandmother came into me, really gave you all the advice and so on. So you have to follow, no? But this smart girl, she could see the illogical thing. He said, yeah, but when my grandmother went into your mind, she spoke to me in Chinese, but my grandmother never learned Chinese one. She didn't know Chinese. So she to see that it was not logical. So sort of things you have to be very careful. Now let us go on to the next one, which is number 12. Now, very important. This is something very, very important, and it is in the Buddhist teachings. You should not accept any teaching or any advice or any spiritual matter and so on if it does not help you to cut your greed, your attachment, and your craving and clinging and grasping for things. So let's say you follow a particular group, a so-called religious group. Actually, it could be a cult group. And then instead of you letting go and become less greedy, you become even more covetous. You go and do more shopping, and then you're very worried you lose your things, and then you're very worried people will take your things, and then you want more and more. You must be following the wrong religious teaching already. How can your own greed, attachment, and craving increasing like this? So that is a very important thing you have to note. The Buddha only taught this thing, in 45 years. The Buddha taught what? Dukkha and the cessation of dukkha. That means suffering and how to stop suffering. So if anything that does not help to stop the suffering, then you know that it is not in line with the Dhamma already. And if a person that is very, very greedy, like now all the corruption, MDB and all those things, who is very attached to things, who always crave things, very selfish, very self-centered, doesn't want to help one, all those things. The fellow is like that and yet following that particular teaching. So that one, of course, is not correct already. And the spiritual master also, sometimes you can see, he's a spiritual master while he's driving a huge car, wearing a Rolex watch, and then asking for this good food, that good food. Then you have to be very careful really. That cannot be a true spiritual teacher. So this is a very important point you have to note. Now let's go on to number 13. Now you see that the whole of this Buddhist teaching or Dhamma center on this. We must cut the greed, hatred, and delusion. We must cut the greed, right? Covetousness, attachment, clinging. Must cut the anger, hatred, jealousy, all pertaining to this, what they call dosa one, anger and hatred one, ill will and so on. So if you follow a particular group, a particular spiritual teacher and gets the teachings and advice, and you find that your temper is not going down, your ill will, your hatred for other people, your jealousy, all still not going down. So that teaching is useless actually. It has not helped you to reduce this. A lot of mumbo jumbo things, maybe rites and rituals lah, do this lah, do that lah, burn this paper lah, burn this object lah, go and offer to this deity, this thing, that thing lah. All these things, and yet you find your anger, ill will, enmity, hatred still there. So those teachings definitely cannot be accepted based on the teaching of Kalama Sutta. And you'll be blamed actually, isn't it? For carrying out those things, and yet you are such a bad tempered and a hateful person. Now, a spiritual teaching cannot be the truth if you, by practicing that spiritual teaching, you have become more egoistic, more proud, and then having very funny beliefs, wrong beliefs, that is delusion. That one you have to be careful. And today you are full of these things, especially the teaching that leads a person to be deluded. So you have also people maybe following funny cult groups, right? We practice, they must pray lah, or maybe chant certain things and so on. Then after praying everything, you find that they can still do very terrible things, like maybe killing the chicken or slaughtering a goat and to offer to the tree god lah, or this and that. And that is delusion. And you have other religions also, you can pray and so on, but after that can even kill and cut off the head of a person. So that actually is a deluded belief already. We have to be careful. True religion will give you the compassion, isn't it? Metta, isn't it? You can see another point. So if by following a particular religion or a particular group of spiritual teachings and so on, any so-called spiritual teacher and you find that you are not becoming a more humble person. You have not become unassuming. You are more proud, you see, I've attained this state already. I meditate, I've reached first stage already, Sotapanna. I've got the first jhana. Actually, a person can see through if the person is practicing Dhamma. That is the ego coming out already. So how can that thing that you learn and practice be true, be acceptable? It is causing the ego to rise up. So if you are practicing well, then the ego must go down. You must be a humble person. That is a very important point, Chinese are very egoistic. And then there is an English proverb, say, pride goes before a fall. Very proud, very proud, you will fall, you see. So remember this point. That is the big point. It's pertaining to all Kalama Sutra, but I have expanded the thing so that it's easier for people to follow. Now look at number 15. Now, if the teaching, right, or the advice, information helps you to get along better with people, right? People begin to like you more. Then you have less relationship problems. That is good teaching. But if the teaching tells you something and you do, and it doesn't improve your relationship in a very wise way, then you are wasting your time. Like some people say, oh, I have a lot of trouble in this family, right? So, master, or maybe a sifu in the temple, can you advise or tell me something that I can improve my relationship? People get along better with me, or they do what I say, and so on. And then the person say, okay, this is what you do. I will give you an tangkai or amulet, a physical thing, maybe the image of a Kuan Yin or the image of the Buddha and so on. Or maybe a pendant, you keep it or you wear it, you will improve. Charge you a big ampao. But that person has not practiced the Dhamma. So how is going to improve the relationship? His character still remains just like that, no change in the character. Selfish, hot-tempered, very greedy, self-centered, and then doing foolish things, causing harm to others. So how can you have good relationship with others? You may be bringing harm to other people apart from you being miserable. So that teaching of just wearing the pendant, I'm not saying you cannot wear pendant. If you wear the Buddha pendant and so on, but you take it as a reminder to practice and it's okay. But many people don't, They just wear all these things because they believe it can help, just mere belief, That is not true. What can help you is actually wise, righteous, consistent practice of the Dhamma. Right? So this is a very important point also. Now let's go on to number 16. Now, if you see a so-called spiritual teacher teaching his doctrines, his beliefs, some of them may be good, I don't dispute that. But then, inside also you have some very deluded teachings that cause harm, And then you find that person is not patient one, People ask questions also, they shoo you away. And they're quite arrogant also. There are all types of so-called religious teachers. You have to be careful. And then they are not understanding, no compassion and tolerance, no metta for the poor people who are. I remember I saw on video, there was this group, wow, people go and seek their help because they have cancer patients and so on. So you blah blah, maybe a good speaker and then you'll tell them, oh, you have to chant this particular verse 1,000 times, Then after that you have to do this or do that all the rites and rituals, And then if people question more, he shows the impatience also. And there is a lack of the compassion and wisdom, all right, and sympathy. So many followers, no. Now I think you hear less of him already. But those days, wow, in Singapore, they say that more than 30, 40, 50,000 listen. That doesn't mean a lot of people go. Right? It's a herd instinct, just following the crowd. And then, of course, there'll be some witnesses. They come out and say, yeah, I have tried to find a specialist. My cancer couldn't go off and this. But then when I see this spiritual master, and then he told me to do this, I got cured, Of course, there's 1,001 reasons why the person can be cured, right? Perhaps his good karma ripened. And of course, maybe there's a strong belief and he doesn't have the bad karma. If it were true, that teaching it were true, then all people should be cured, isn't it? No need to have hospitals, no need to have specialists already. But no, it might be just a very, very small number. The others who got no help at all, no effect and so on. They would not dare to come out and say, shy. And he would say, oh, you have no faith, right? You don't believe. So be careful. And you're following that teaching, you must be watching your mind. Your character, have you become more patient with all the people you relate to in your work, in your family, with people in the temple or in your religious center? Have you been able to tolerate other people's mistakes or what? Because there are certain reasons to show compassion, all this. So you have to check. And if those teachings that you do are helping you to have these good qualities developing, then those teachings are good. So that is this criterion. Now let's look at number 17 now. Now this is a very important thing and it's emphasized in the Dhamma teachings. That if we practice the correct Dhamma, proper, because now a lot of fake Buddha teachings also, fake Dhamma. So you have to check out. Now, one of the teachings is to develop the mind, like for example, through meditation, proper meditation again, right? And then also through listening to the good Dhamma teachings based on the research work, the original teachings. And then also to do reflection and to practice the thing. And one very important practice is we must develop the mind in two things in mindfulness. To be able to more alert, being able to pay attention, to remember the things that will help us to develop our character, what we should do. 注意心 right mindfulness must practice. And then also to be able to study the mind, to still the mind, to concentrate the mind so that the mind can become stronger. The wisdom can arise and can see things more clearly. So if teachings go along that line and you practice and you find the benefits, wow, now I can remember things better. My memory has improved, and then I can concentrate better already. Bit by bit, you begin to experience the benefits. Then, of course, you follow those teachings. So you find you have a series of steps. Some people tell you funny ways of meditation. Use a whip yourself, torture yourself, ascetic practice. Then your mind, then you know, of course, that is not true. You are really hurting yourself. Anything that you do, hurt your physical body so much you get the pain. How can that be the truth? But there are people who believe, even early Christianity, you find, I have seen some movies where even the priests, they will weep and weep themselves until the blood comes out. That is not what the Buddha taught. The Buddha went through all these things and found that he got nowhere actually. The ascetic practices. Now let us go on to number 18. This is also a very important thing to check out. Now, if that teaching that you follow, the spiritual teacher that teaches certain things like this, if what he teaches helps you to grow in metta. Now, metta, the best translation is loving kindness, to be more friendly, to have goodwill, right? To be more benevolent. Metta, loving kindness, 慈爱. So if we have become more kind, having more metta, and then 慈悲, more compassion for people who are suffering, the needy ones, then those teachings are good. You won't be blamed. In fact, people will respect you. Good things will come because people find who are the people you like and respect, not the people who are selfish, who are hateful, who are hot-tempered, isn't it? So you find all in line with the Kalama Sutta. So this is a very important point to check out. If that particular teacher of yours or that spiritual master is lacking in metta, and then he has little compassion, he's more interested in maybe getting fame, glory, famous, get a bigger car or build a bigger temple, and then personal possessions, all this, then you have to be very careful. These teachers, you have to question in your mind at least. So I'm very careful also. I have to find out which are the Buddhist teachers or the Buddhist monks whom I really respect and so on. Now I'm following basically Chief Reverend Dhammananda, all right, and then Ajahn Brahm and the Ajahn Chah's traditions. This is basically what I'm following in my practice, all right. In my learning also, Ajahn Chah's traditions, the whole list of Western disciples with some very good teachings, and also the works of Chief Reverend Dhammananda and a few others. Right. Now, so let us now go on to number 19. So remember this very beautiful picture. Remember, if by following that religious practice, you have become more selfish, self-centered, less kind, will not be doing dana one. So you have to be careful. You cannot feel compassion or sympathy for other people. Do whatever you can to relieve the suffering. If you don't have the progress along this line, then you have to question the teachings already that you are doing. Especially, people who do a lot of rites and rituals, waste so much time, energy, and money, on such a day, right? You have to chant, every day you have to chant, after that you chant how many times already, and then every time you chant, you mark. I'm not saying those things are completely useless, but it's a wrong understanding and wrong motivation, and then burn all those things while hoping to get something. But inside you have not really transformed. As I've told you, even I had a relative, old lady. She would chant the mantra. I'm not trying to belittle any mantra, right? I also do a mantra, but you must have understanding. You will chant Guan Yin Pusat, Guan Yin Pusat. So it becomes like a mechanical thing already, right? Without much of understanding. So sometimes the grandchild will come and Ama, I call her, will just shoot the blood. The temple is still just as bad as before. So no amount of chanting to the Guan Yin, everything, appealing for help, right, is really beneficial. If there's a Kuan Yin, Kuan Yin may be laughing at the blur. Kuan Yin represents compassion, but now you are having your bad temper as usual, your character, and you just chant my name for so long. What's the use? I'm not saying we cannot chant the mantra. Of course, we chant the mantra with understanding and then with watching the mind. All those things are a lot of good things also. But unfortunately, many of those things have reduced to rituals, rites only. Just follow. And somehow will still, when you do this and you get this, you do this, you get this. And they do a lot of foolish things that cause harm. Like for example, I have also, some friends, the neighbors are causing havoc because 1 week, at least once, and then new moon, full moon, wow, they will burn the 4 feet tall joss sticks and the joss papers, everything, and then all the debris, the carbon, the black things and the poisonous things of gases will be blown by the wind to this friend of mine, right? So of course it's causing harm. And causing harm to the environment, you're polluting the environment. You're wasting money where the money can be put to better use to help the old folks or the orphans, isn't it? But that is the wrong belief, a delusion. Maybe he might have been taught by certain people or certain temples or centers, religious centers and so on. This is a very, very common thing even happening today. People don't investigate, and you have to listen more to the right teachings, find the right people. You can judge whether the person, okay, how is he? Does he practice what he teaches? What is his character like? Is he selfish? No, not doing dana, right? Does he observe his moral precepts or all those things? You can question before you decide to accept or not, isn't it? Now let us go on to number 19. Now, if you find a teaching that does not make you to be more contented, more chok, not contented, but instead you want more and more, some are so deluded, they say they even will become monks and so on, but you find the motivation not very proper. They aim for this, aim for that, and then people they follow certain groups, they instead of becoming contented, wow, they go and ask the spiritual master, can give the Angkong Ji, the numbers 4 ekor. And then some even go to the graveyard, right? And then you get the numbers, no. And that is a so-called religious, spiritual teacher, so-called, and he's following those things, doing all those things that are being advised, Instead of becoming more contented, he's quite rich already, actually, but he wants more and more. So if any teaching that does not give rise to more of letting go, anytime we may die, so suddenly COVID or cancer or maybe 100 more types of diseases and causes, including accidents. So there's something wrong with the teaching. You have not become more contented. Wanting to have more and more. Last time I used to do shopping. It's not that you cannot do shopping, but now after following the thing, you wow, cheap sale, or you want more and more things. I have visited how many countries. I want more to visit and everything. So I'm not saying those things are wrong. You can of course enjoy yourself to a certain limit, but then this has not given rise to contentment. It's giving rise to more craving and more wanting to please the senses. In Hokkien we say, right? So then you have to be careful already. That is definitely not the way already. Now let's go to number 20. Final point you can say is this. Whatever teaching, spiritual teaching or religious teaching or advice that you get from books, from your listening to talks, or from religious teachers, so-called religious teachers and spiritual teachers, will those teachings or those practices that you are asked to do, or those advice and methods that you are asked to follow, have all these things guided you to live more peacefully? That your mind has become more peaceful, not 100%, but more of the times compared to last time. That your wisdom grows, that your mind can become more calm, more sturdy in the face of the 8 worldly winds, the misfortunes that come, the unfortunate things that come, you can brace better already. Your mind has become more peaceful. And you are practicing like this particular image. This lady is very peaceful. She's doing the meditation of samatha meditation, vipassana meditation, concentration meditation or tranquility meditation, and also the vipassana contemplation, insight meditation. So now their minds have become more and more peaceful. Then those teachings, those doctrines, those bits of advice and so on given by the spiritual master, then they can be accepted. Actually, I've tried to elaborate on the Kalama Sutra so that people can, put it to practice rather than just a few lines. Maybe you cannot understand. Now we come to the end slide already, right? That's the ending already. Now, actually, I like these two particular animated images of the Buddha. And all these things are just, just to capture your attention and also to create good impression. And this actually represents an enlightened mind, an awakened mind, not like we are still struggling, you see, no halo. Actually, this also is shown in other religions, like the Christian saints, they have the halo, or Jesus Christ. They are great spiritual beings. So that's why they show this. So let us make this aspiration that we follow the proper path. And for Buddhists, you have to follow the Noble Eightfold Path. I've said that. That is the way to perfect happiness, peace, liberation. And follow the original teachings. Don't go to the fake Buddha quotes, Buddha teachings. Some of them still in line, even not quoted by the Buddha, but quoted by some other wise monks or wise people. But you check that they are in line with the Buddha's teaching, then fine, you see, because they have different ways of expression. So let us make this aspiration. May there be happiness, peace, and freedom in the mind. The mind is not trapped and bonded by the evil forces of Mara, of greed, hatred, delusion. Then we are moving on the right path towards the final goal of awakening, of enlightenment, right? So I hope that you find this presentation useful. I personally find it's a very important type of presentation to tell people to be careful not to go the wrong way, to go astray. And I've given you a lot of criteria where you can check for yourself, isn't it? Right? So before we say sadhu 3 times, I would like to thank all brothers and sisters in the Dhamma, uncles and aunties, even the very suitable for the young people also, secondary students, college students, university students, youth organizations, and so on. So I'll be posting this much later, a few weeks later. Then you can follow on the YouTube or even look at the PowerPoint. For those who don't understand the narration and explanation in English, you can just follow the Chinese words, but they don't have the detailed explanation, just the summary words only. So now let us put our palms together and say sadhu 3 times. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Brothers and sisters in the Dhamma, may you all be well, happy, and peaceful. And may the sublime Buddha Dhamma be with you always. Take care.